Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and this is another Mud City Drive-By. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start this one with Hogan declaring the Baltimore Convention Center and Hilton Hotel to be field hospitals. All right, and putting the National Guard in charge there to create facilities to handle any potential overflow of the hospitals for corona patients, right, or rather COVID patients. And he did this on the 24th. And so a couple of days later, I went down there and I did a little cruise by. And I thought this was really interesting, right on the heels of my walking around by the hospitals and Mary and I doing that one drive-by that we did already. I thought it was interesting that to be converting these places to field hospitals, yet there really wasn't much going on at the hospitals. Um, so I went down there and I took a look, and this was just a couple of days after this, maybe the 26th. Um, and I'm just going to show a couple of quick seconds of that.
That's the front of the convention center.
And I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to drag walk it because I just walked the whole thing, and you can see that there's nothing happening in front of here. And now when I heard that he was turning this into a field hospital, I was like, well, then, there's going to be evidence of that. There's going to be some sort of sign that this is a field hospital. I mean, its main entrances are right along Pratt Street here, where I'm walking, and yet there is nothing to indicate that this is any sort of field hospital or emergency facility at all. Right? And it's just a couple of days after the announcement, so maybe, things haven't progressed very far yet.
So this is
Right? And this is the Hilton, which is next door. And now I have brought them up here. This is the convention center, and this is the Hilton. All right. And so I just walked along the Pratt Street side here. Again, this was a week ago, maybe. Um, and now I'm going to take a look at the front of the Hilton here. All right, so I'm just going to drag this along as well. This is the front along Pratt Street here. And again, nothing. You would not know. And again, this is the valet to the hotel, right back there. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where you get dropped off. And I went down there today, so we're gonna take a look at that footage as well. But again, a couple of days after the governor announces this is going to be a field hospital, I mean, you wouldn't know. You would have no idea. All right. And I think it's hilarious. Also coming, I'm gonna focus in on here. Right. There's a Jimmy John's right here that's connected to the hotel that even today, as of today, is still open for carry. Yet it's connected to what would be this field hospital, this alleged field hospital. All right. And that's kind of amazing. All right, so that was a couple days ago. That was a week ago. And then the other day, yesterday, Mary calls me and says, "What are you doing? Let's go do another drive-by." She has a friend that's looking for some footage of some hospitals, and I said, "All right, let's go." And so this is the footage that I took with Mary yesterday. And again, we went cruising around some of the same places we did in our first drive-by, just to check on, what the hospitals are looking like. Okay, and so just to give you an idea of where that is now, we are going to go by the University of Baltimore Medical Center, and we're going to cruise the emergency room entrance. We're about to turn on to Lombard, and we're going to cruise by the emergency room entrance here.
I was never there.
all right. We got cops.
Okay, now this is this corner here.
The emergency room's in the middle of the block.
Yeah.
So not a lot happening at that entrance. And this was, mid afternoon, 3 o'clock maybe yesterday afternoon.
Be the perfect time to shut down traffic to one lane, right? front of the emergency room.
Okay, and now I have footage of that from today where we actually do see that.
Chick-fil-A catering at the emergency room. Shock trauma. You can hear a helicopter above us.
There's a chopper coming in. It's an awful lot of parked ambulances.
There are quite a few parked ambulances around here.
You might want to put that down because I gotta say I took a wrong turn. The tour, I gave you a tour
Yeah.
all the way through the ambulance entrance.
This is going to be our cruise by Mercy again. And I don't do as good a job here. There's the entrance to Mercy. Nothing much happening in the front entrance. And this is, sorry for the weird edits there. Mary kept creeping in. There is an ambulance back there in front of Mercy Emergency Room. And again, it's hard to know what to make of that. Yeah, but again, there's not a lot of activity or anything really happening down around here. Very curious to me. It could be for any number of reasons. I'm not, I don't know.
Are we taking a loop?
Yeah, take the loop.
All right, now we're coming back to Hopkins again. And this was yesterday afternoon, like 3 o'clock. Driving through the emergency room entrance here.
Several days later. No parking signs everywhere. You can't park down here.
Parked down here before. That's nothing new. That's what security's job was, to keep you from not parking down here. And look, there's an empty parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not a whole lot happening around here. That guy's job, do you see him, the landscaper? I mean, that was essential.
Now, I don't know if you noticed it, but when we first turned into the loop, there was like a landscaping truck there and a bunch of workers around there. So I'm glad that it's essential for Johns Hopkins Hospital for their landscaping to be upkept during this pandemic. They have their priorities straight at Hopkins. Let me tell you.
Essential work. Blowing the... Let's go.
So now we're coming up on the admin offices here. This is like the best shot I get of this. There are a couple of like triage tents set up front
Yeah,
here.
some sort of outdoor tent set up there.
And now you can see a couple of people in like scrubs in this one, and it does have a door on it, which is interesting. But I'm guessing this is some form of COVID testing station, but in front of the administration buildings of Hopkins and not the hospital entrance, which is kind of strange.
Today. Here are...
All right, so yeah, we have this white van, but this pyramid has always kind of attracted my attention whenever I've been up by Hopkins. Why is there like a glass pyramid in the middle of this park? That was always curious to me.
It's there for some reason. And then we got white vans up by the admin with this very empty looking tent.
And I love the Hopkins building. Someday I will do a video on the Hopkins building, of course. All right, so that was the drive-by footage that we got yesterday. But I wanted to get more. I wanted to, especially now, because yesterday in the newspaper, we got hit with this. All right, they're preparing for a surge. All right, yesterday, April 1st, April Fools. All right, the surge, unfortunately, is just starting, Governor Hogan says, right? We are preparing for a surge that I am told will come to us in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And now, So is that why everything is so empty looking? Is that why there's nothing by the convention center and the Hilton? It's all happening inside, and they're preparing for this surge that they know is coming, or they want us to believe is coming anyway. Are people not reporting their illnesses? Are they just not getting sick? And that's what another aspect of this, because all week long I've been going to local pharmacies and supermarkets and going in and taking pictures of their cold and flu section, right? Because I think this is a major element of the story that's not getting enough play. And that is that, are people getting sick or any sicker than they might normally be this time of year? Because it is, as they're so willing to inform us, cold and flu season and allergy season. So people are snotting up all over the place this time of year, regardless of the year, right? And regardless of what's going around, right? And so, sure enough, you can find plenty of cold and flu and allergy medications in South Baltimore anyway. I mean, I found them in the 3 pharmacies and 1 supermarket that I went in. All right. And I think there is some hope for humanity, because where I found the most dead spots were in more natural kind of cures. Like this Zarbee's, I believe, is a honey product. And Zicam is zinc, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember is that zinc or not. But I do in another still have a little more hope for humanity. But again, cold and flu stuff around in fairly decent supply, or even more so in some cases. And at this particular one, I don't see signs that limit, but there is coming up a local pharmacy. We got some space there, but again, I mean, if you're having symptoms of a severe cold or super flu that is deadly to people with respiratory problems, and makes respiratory problems worse, you're going to have no problem finding something to alleviate those symptoms, in any of these pharmacies. All right, here we go. This is a different pharmacy now. There's a limit of 2. And I think it's interesting. You can see how the shelves are stacked neatly with 2. So it's like, like 2 of these Mucinex sell. It's like, quick, Sammy, go back and get some more of that Mucinex and put it out. Right? They don't want it to look like they're overstocked. That's kind of what that makes me think of. Again, this is stuff that I picked up. This is the same pharmacy I was at a couple weeks ago, 10 days ago, or whenever I did that back to Baltimore video. And this is where I got my cold calm and stuff. And that's what was all here, was more natural type things. Airborne, effervescent vitamins, that kind of thing here. And this, and if you can get it, cold calm, Sinasalia, that stuff is wonderful if you're ill. And it's all natural. It's plant derivative. Children's cold and cough, plenty of that stuff around. Not going to have a problem getting that. But, try getting, a nice fluffy roll of Charmin, or some good paper towels, that's the end of the pharmacy. I mean, that stuff's, that's black market stuff now. But if you're feeling sick, you can find this stuff. It's out there, right? And so that's what, this surge. If people are expecting this stuff, if they're really feeling sicker, they're not showing it. And the hospitals aren't being flooded, that I can tell by going by their main entrances, emergency room entrances. If anything, it looks less than business as usual. And again, why is that? Is that, people are steering clear of hospitals? Are they sucking up their illnesses better now because they don't want to be diagnosed with this, dreaded COVID-19? That could be a stigma, socially in the future. Who knows? So I wanted to go check out the Hilton and the convention center again. Over a week later. And so this is what I found this time. And this is a security van, and I'm really just going to kind of do the same thing. I'm not crazy about this footage either. I tried to hold the phone up to my ear like I was talking and walking, and it just didn't get the best footage. But, there's really no indication out front of this Hilton hotel that this is a field hospital or an emergency facility. But something interesting does happen while I'm walking in front here, and that's this van pulls up. Like I said, there was this security van, security company, fire and security alarm, right? But then this van pulls up. I'm not gonna be able to catch it. Ah, see, it happens too fast. It's called. I haven't brought up. Hold on. And so it's called Soldier Fit, and it's it's a boot camp and fitness program, right? It's a class, right? What is this van doing, pulling up in front of the? And again, I try not to be too blatant about recording it, so that's why I didn't get a good boot camp and fitness training. Why are they pulling up in front of a field hospital? I don't understand that at all. Right? And but again, as I was saying, walking by it on the on the windows, there's no indication. The only sign that I saw on the window was just saying that the valet parking was closed. All right, there was a scooter abandoned in the middle of the sidewalk. All right, so now I'm coming back again to the convention center, and again, no real indication out front of the. This is the main entrance of the convention center today. Right? And there's no indication here. There's no vehicles out front, no major signage to say that this is a field hospital or that if you're feeling symptoms of the coronavirus, you should either go here, go to the hospital, report anywhere, right? There's just no sign of it, right? And the only sign that I did see, and I didn't get, of course, because I'm trying to be slick, I didn't really read the sign. It just said, building closed, for public safety, but below that it says go to Charles Street entrance, which I did not do. So that's my homework assignment. I had a trajectory in mind, and I was going to go check out the University of Maryland after this. And, I was also on a time limit. I didn't want to be out too long, of course, because we are under stay at home. All right. So again, I just walked by, not a lot to see down there at all in front of the convention center. Right. And I go up to the top of those steps. Nothing happening up there. No signage up there either. Nice view of Pratt Street. And so then I move along to the University of Maryland here. So now I'm looking at this area. This is the front of the University of Maryland Hospital here. This is the area we're about to be looking at. Again.
So we are now in front of University of Maryland Medical Center. Buses are still running in full. But you tell me. Ooh, we got a news truck here. All right. That's an interesting development. I'm going to talk to these news people, but this is the front. And I hope you can see it. You can make of this what you will. But I would not say that this is like overflowing with traffic or anything like that. Front of the University of Maryland Medical Center.
Okay, and so I didn't want to make it. I did try to make an attempt to speak to that the guy who drove that news van, but he ran from me. He really did. Because when he was pulled up, he clearly saw I was recording, right? Yeah. All right, let's see where we got next. So now this is
entrance that Mary and I drove by yesterday. Not a whole lot of action today. And we're going to walk by the emergency room one more time.
All right, so again, just to refresh our memories, where the emergency room is right here. All right, and I'm going to get a little footage of how they have this lane closed here as well.
Which again is weird street access up here. And this is what Mary was talking about yesterday. I didn't get a shot of it. They've closed the lane. They've made this a one-lane road right in front of the emergency room entrance. Very interesting. So here we go up on the emergency room.
And again, awfully convenient that this construction can happen and they can create a one-lane road here on this is Lombard Street, right? It's a nightmare getting down Lombard Street almost any time of day. that they can close it down and not have any traffic concerns, right? Because they're certainly not worried about traffic coming into the emergency room. Again, these two vehicles, this is if it's not a police car, it's a security car, as is this one. These are, yeah, but here we can see inside a little bit. Inside the emergency room there. Like they had a canine cap. I wonder what they need a canine unit at the hospital for. That's interesting. The COVID sniffing dogs. I'm trying to see if I can see any action in there. I really can't. All right. But anyway, after the emergency room, which is this side here, I turn up this street, which has the shock trauma on it, right? And I'm looking for that area that has the ambulances, which is back this way. Right? But as I'm walking up, I see this area here, and I find this.
Here we have some tents on the other side. See if we can't get a closer look at these. I don't know how much we're going to be able to see in there. It doesn't look like to be a whole lot happening in them setting up that one. But here we have tents set up in front of the University School of Medicine with no activity happening around them. None. And I'm going to go up there. Nothing happening back there. So, I don't know what they're setting up here. Look, this is where the ambulances were hanging out. I'm going to walk back there, maybe even talk to some people.
And I do.
You can see they have this. They're definitely trying to set it up as some form of triage.
Okay, now I don't know how good a job I'm doing here, but this giant tent, I don't know how many peaks this one has, 3 or 4 maybe, but the center of it is this large square. It's squared off, and I'm going to take a look at that. It's hard. I don't do a very good job with that, but here we go.
And this is where they have.
But one thing I want to point out is, and you can see it throughout as I'm walking around in there, all the sunlight and gaps in these tents. I mean, these are not like sealed by any stretch of the imagination.
I'll show you that they're going to have forced air, I guess, or some form of ventilation in there. But this is just little mini rooms, like almost like dressing rooms in a department store, kind of set up inside this tent.
I mean, they were just these little rooms. Like maybe you could sit in there, and they would give you your test and you would sit in there. I don't know. And I don't know how many there were on each side of this. No more than a dozen in all.
Kind of set up inside this tent. Right. What are your symptoms, sir?
I want to look at that thing. See, like, there was a couple of these things in there. I don't know if this is supposed to be some sort of power supply, but there was nothing to power in there. There was no lights or anything, really. Look at all these. It's ridiculous.
Right down this side as well. Same kind of thing. I mean, these are all just little rooms. All right. All right, so this is that's just where I was inside, right here. All right. And that's the forced air lines or whatever they got set up going in there. But I mean, really, the seams on these tents aren't necessarily airtight. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But this is in front of the University of Maryland Medical Center. just to keep that out there. All right. So that's what's going on here.
All right, so now I'm gonna get into where the ambulances were, and now watch this. After having watched this a couple of times, I catch the 5-0 rolling in pretty quick. It's pretty slick. But there was, four, five, maybe half a dozen at most ambulances just chilling back here. So I'm coming up around the side, and I'm gonna look on the sidewalk side.
Oh, they're definitely charging. That's what they're doing. They're charging their electronic stuff. That's what's happening down here. Interesting. So Mary was right.
She said they were fueling up, something like that, right? And it's just amazing. There's like a fleet of ambulances charged up and raring, ready to go. It certainly didn't seem like, and I don't have any experience with this, but it certainly didn't seem like they had just like dropped anybody off or anything like that. There was no sense of urgency around any of these vehicles at all. In fact, there was really nobody around. And on the corner here, as I was walking back, mission accomplished, there was two security people standing out here having a smoke break. And so I asked them if they knew what the tents were, and they said, yeah, yeah, that's where the testing is going to be. It's going to be a testing facility. And so I asked them if they knew when they were going to start testing, and they had no idea. And I asked them if they were testing inside the medical center, and they said that they were doing testing, but it was limited. They were only testing certain people. So I don't know who they were testing or what symptoms you would have to have in order to be tested. But that's the story behind that tent. It's going to be a testing facility, allegedly. Satellite facility, so you don't go inside the building before you're tested. So that's the most recent drive and walk by these facilities here. I think it's very interesting, especially given that they say that, they're so adamant that this surge is coming in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And it's interesting that, they have this time where the temperatures can kind of stay kind of mild, not so hot. They can get it a little bit dry if they want. These are conditions that are very conducive, I'm gathering, for this COVID, this particular coronavirus, right? And that it doesn't particularly like the heat. And I was looking at this tracker, this Johns Hopkins tracker, and noticing a little bit about its activity in the, southern hemisphere. Right? And I was looking at locations like, you see where, let's see, this total cases. Let's go over here, right? We got just over 1 million, they're telling us as of today, right? The U.S. is the most, of course, right? Tremendous numbers in the U.S. All right, so see, Iran's got a significant number, which is kind of interesting considering how hot and arid I consider that land. I'll have to check in on their normal weather patterns. But as we get south and as places get warmer, the cases drop significantly, and there's also populations to consider as well. But then I see India, and this is what really, like, India. India has like over 1 billion people. It's the second most populated country on the planet. If this is such a contagious virus, if it's so deadly, only 2,500 in India. But again, it's very warm there. So I think it's kind of curious that they're setting up all these, at least in Baltimore, they're setting up the convention center and the Hilton as, field hospitals in anticipation of these numbers. But when you go to the hospitals, they don't look all that overtaxed or anything like that. And you see that summer's coming and that perhaps Mother Nature is going to help us fight this thing just as well as any sort of vaccine or anything else. I don't know. But there is some indication look at where this is coming from. It's so poorly written as well. Temperature significant change, COVID-19 transmission. So it says here that in the single factor model of the higher temperature group, every 1 degree Celsius increase in the minimum temperature led to a decrease of the cumulative number of cases. All right. Conclusion, the study found that to a certain extent, again, just maybe it's because it was so rushed, temperature could I hate that, change COVID-19 transmission. Right? It could. Temperature could significantly change the transmission. And that there might be a best temperature for viral transmission, which may partly explain why it first broke out in Wuhan. All right? And that regions with lower temperatures in the world should adopt more strict measures to prevent future reversal. I think it's very interesting that summer's coming and that they're ramping up this surge, right? Because also now in Maryland, hospitals are allowed to raise the rates to pay for this surge of coronavirus patients. So, this surge has very real implications for healthcare for everybody else. And so it says that hospitals in Maryland will be allowed to raise the rates temporarily charged to all patients as a means of funding emergency and ongoing care for patients. Now, are they charging the patients or are they charging the insurance companies higher rates? Who are they charging? For one. All right, they'll also be able to bypass normal regulatory steps needed to make changes, such as adding beds. Well, what other changes can they make by bypassing these normal regulatory steps along with adding extra beds? Because it says changes such as. So that means there are other changes that can be made. All right, the move is expected because hospitals will have extra costs related to the surge of patients, which they have yet to see, by the way. So, I wonder if they'll retroactively give you refund for overcharging you if they don't have this surge of patients. And how will you know if a hospital has a surge of patients if there are field hospitals, massive ones that can be set up? Like that convention center is huge, underground fortress. I mean, it really is. Right? It says the rates hospitals charge in Maryland are tightly regulated, but they've had to move quickly to acquire these things. Other state agencies are also removing licensing and regulatory barriers to speed the process of adding beds at the hospitals. Again, so what else can they do when they remove these licensing and regulatory barriers? That's the question. That's what we need to be looking at. And I'm not qualified to do that, unfortunately. But I'm sure somebody out there is, And so I'm keeping an eye on things here in Baltimore. Right? As best as they'll let me and as best as I can get away with. It's going to be harder and harder. This may, in fact, be the last one. I don't know. But I'm going to try to keep them coming. I got to try to get down and look at that Charles Street entrance of the convention center. That's something that I'd like to do. But here's some footage of some hospitals and emergency rooms and things like that for people who are curious. And I think it's our right to know what's going on in these places. And so that's why, I'm going out there and taking this footage and trying to share it best I can. All right. So this has been another Mud City Drive-By. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And until the next one, cheers, guys.